Okay, so you guys wanted to really explore the word effervescent.
Yeah.
So we've pulled together quite a bit of info for this deep dive.
Sound good.
We've got some pretty straightforward definitions from Langgeek and Merriam-Webster.
The usual suspects.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
But we've also got some really interesting stuff from Becky's Substack,
Oh, cool.
where she actually talks about her own experience with the word.
Awesome.
And of course, we had to go way back in time with Edom Online to see where this bubbly word comes from.
Love a good origin story.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just for fun, we've got a quick hit from TikTok.
Gotta say trendy.
Of course.
Okay.
And then to round things out, we have a deeper dive on YouTube from Words Unlocked
Okay.
and a really comprehensive exploration by the English Plus podcast.
Wow, that's quite the mix of sources.
It is.
So, what's the plan? Where are we going with all this?
Well, we don't want to just tell you what effervescent means.
Right.
We want to really dig into all those different facets of the word
Okay, I like it.
and see why it's such a fascinating word that keeps popping up.
I mean, seriously.
So let's start with the basics. When we say effervescent, most people immediately think of...
Rubbles.
Exactly.
Right.
Langgeek and Merriam-Webster both define it as producing bubbles or fizz, and usually that's because of...
Carbon dioxide.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that hiss when you open a can of soda.
Oh, yeah.
Or those delicate little bubbles in sparkling water.
Or even like champagne or Prosecco.
Yes, that celebratory pop.
Exactly. That's effervescence in its most basic form.
It is, and Langgeek even goes a step further and talks about how it's not just the visual.
As a whole sensory experience.
Yeah, there's that refreshing, almost invigorating feeling and taste that comes with those bubbly drinks.
It's true. You know, sometimes a little bit of fizz can really...
Kick you up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's funny because this whole bubbling thing, it's not just limited to drinks.
Oh, right.
Like Merriam-Webster mentions effervescent salts and effervescent tablets.
Huh. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, you drop those in water and...
You got bubbles.
Exactly. Same principle, different application.
Interesting.
And thinking about those examples, it makes you think about what doesn't have bubbles.
The opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
And Langgeek and Merriam-Webster both use terms like non-effervescent still to describe drinks that lack that fizz.
So, you know, still water, flat soda.
Exactly. It really highlights how important that bubbling action is.
To the whole idea of effervescence.
Totally. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
So we've got the literal bubbles down.
There's more.
There is effervescent can also be used in a figurative way.
I knew it.
And both Langgeek and Merriam-Webster talk about this.
Awesome.
They say it can describe someone who's, you know, energetic,
Okay.
excited, lively,
I like it.
someone with a certain vibrancy.
That's cool. It's like that image of something physically bubbling over.
Yes.
Got transferred to describe a person's personality.
Exactly. And there are so many synonyms for this meaning. Yeah, like Langgeek gives us bubbly, fizzing, sparkling.
Yeah. So we're still in that bubbly realm.
We are, but then it also branches out to words like animated, colorful,
Okay.
ebullient, energetic, exuberant.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And then Merriam-Webster adds even more to the mix.
Like what?
Like bouncy, buoyant, even gay, which is kind of an older term.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then there's frolicsome, gamesome, high-spirited, vivacious.
Wow. They really went all out with those synonyms.
They did.
It's amazing, though, because all those words really paint a picture
They do.
of someone who just brings this lightness and energy to the room.
Yeah, it's not just about being energetic.
Right.
It's a certain kind of energy.
Yeah, it's joyful. It's infectious.
Exactly, and the examples really illustrate this well. Like, Langgeek talks about an effervescent personality brightening a room,
Oh, I like that.
and a party being lively because of an effervescent host.
Makes sense.
And then Merriam-Webster mentions cheerleading candidates needing that spark.
Obviously.
Right.
Gotta have that energy.
You do, and they also talk about an effervescent person in general,
Okay.
and even a song with an effervescent melody.
Ooh, I can almost hear that.
Right. It's upbeat and lively.
It is, and that reminds me of that Words Unlocked video on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they described effervescent as lively, bubbly, enthusiastic,
Perfect.
conveying this like energetic positivity.
Exactly. It's someone who doesn't just have energy for themselves.
Right. They kind of spread it around.
They do, and the English Plus podcast takes this even further.
Really?
Yeah. They suggest that effervescence symbolizes not just energy, but enthusiasm and this irrepressible spirit.
Ooh, I like that irrepressible spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
They talk about it being like the laughter that fills a room,
Okay.
the sparkle in someone's eye, that infectious joy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is like they're the human equivalent of a champagne bottle.
That's been shaken up.
Exactly. They just overflow with good feeling.
That's a great analogy. And you know that idea of an irrepressible spirit?
Yeah.
I think that's really key.
It suggests that there's this deep well of positivity that's always there, even when things get tough.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about what the word means.
We have.
Both literally and figuratively.
Where does it come from?
Yeah, let's get into the etymology.
Okay, so Etym Online takes us all the way back to the 1680s.
Wow.
And tells us that effervescent comes directly from the Latin effervescentum.
Okay, I'm following.
And effervescentum is the present participle of effervescere.
Say that 3 times fast.
I mean, no, right?
Okay, so what does effervescere mean?
Well, it literally means to boil up or to boil over.
So that connection to bubbling and fizzing,
It's right there at the origin.
it'll make sense now.
It does, and it gets even better.
How?
Effervescere breaks down even further.
Oh, wow.
It comes from ex, meaning out, like something bursting outward,
I see.
and fervescere, which means to begin to boil.
Gotcha.
And then that goes back to fervere,
Which just means...
to be hot or to boil.
So we've got this image of energetic movement.
Yes.
Something hot and bubbly.
Exactly. And get this, Etym Online connects favere to the Proto-Indo-European root, brew,
Okay.
which meant to boil, to bubble, to effervesce, to burn.
So basically all things bubbly.
Pretty much. And it's amazing because that root is connected to words we still use today,
Oh, like what?
like brew broth, ferment, fervent,
Wow.
and even Brazil.
No way. Brazil.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
It is. I never would have guessed that.
It really shows you how interconnected language is.
And how these core ideas just stick around.
They do across time and cultures.
It's fascinating.
It is. And it's also interesting to note that the figurative meaning of exuberant,
Oh, that lively, enthusiastic sense.
yeah, that actually developed later around 1833.
Huh. So the physical bubbling came first.
It did, and then we applied that image to describe people,
That makes sense. You know, we often use tangible physical experiences.
to understand abstract ideas.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor.
Exactly. Okay, so let's bring this back down to earth and look at how effervescent is used in real life.
All right, let's do it.
So Becky, on her Substack, shared a funny story about a server in a restaurant
Okay.
who used effervescent to describe a still wine.
Ooh, that's a mistake.
It is, and it really shows you how important it is to use the right word.
You definitely don't want a flat, effervescent wine.
No, you don't.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even though we love the figurative meaning,
The literal meaning is still important.
for clear communication,
Absolutely. And Becky also gives us some great examples of the word in context.
I'm all ears.
She describes a friend with an effervescent personality who
Yeah.
just sparks these lively conversations and brings people together.
That sounds lovely.
And then she gives a very literal example of highly effervescent champagne causing a sneeze.
Oh, so both sides of the word.
Exactly.
I like it. And, you know, the TikTok word of the day,
Yeah.
they also highlighted this dual nature
They did. They talked about both the carbonation in drinks.
and the bubbly personality type.
Right. And they emphasized that figurative meaning with synonyms like vivacious.
Lively, energetic, enthusiastic.
Exactly. Very similar to the dictionary definitions.
Makes sense.
And the English Plus podcast really broadened our understanding of effervescence
Wow.
by exploring how it shows up in different areas of life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they talked about a friend who always cheers you up.
Oh.
A mentor whose energy is just inspiring.
Yeah.
Those moments of pure joy that feel almost sparkly.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that bubbly quality.
In all its forms.
Exactly. And they even shared some really vivid examples.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like a community celebrating a neighbor's return
That's sweet.
and a teacher whose enthusiasm totally transforms the classroom.
It's like that effervescence has a ripple effect.
It does. It has a positive impact on everyone around.
That's powerful. And do they talk about any specific phrases or?
They did. They mentioned some common pairings with effervescence.
Okay, what were they?
So they talk about effervescent joy.
So that's like that light, bubbly happiness,
Exactly. And then there's effervescent spirit.
which is that lively, resilient nature,
Even when things are tough.
Mm.
And then there's effervescent enthusiasm.
which is just that overflowing excitement.
Yes.
I love those. And, you know, my favorite phrase from the podcast
Tell me.
was effervescence of youth.
Oh, that's a good one.
It just perfectly captures that boundless energy and joy.
That you often see in young people.
Yeah, it's such a great image.
It is. And we also found some more recent examples of the word in use.
Okay.
Like Merriam-Webster mentioned a Bon Appetit article from March of this year.
This year?
Yeah, just a couple of months ago.
Wow.
And they described a sec grapefruit fizz as an effervescent citrusy cocktail.
So back to the literal.
Back to the literal.
Nice.
And then there was a Forbes article, also from March.
This year?
Yeah, 2025.
Okay.
Talking about effervescent sounds in a piece of music.
Interesting.
It's kind of a cool way to use the word figuratively.
Like the sounds are lively and maybe even a little sparkly.
Exactly. And then there was a CNBC article, also from March,
2025.
about champagne potentially losing its
Effervescence.
because of tariffs.
Oh, wow. So it's even popping up in economic news.
It is. And then one last example from Forbes, again, from March of this year,
Okay.
talking about the profitability of effervescent tablets.
So from drinks to personalities,
To finance.
effervescent really does cover a lot of ground.
It does. It's a versatile word that's still relevant today.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into effervescent,
Yeah.
it's clear that it has these two core meanings.
The literal bubbling and the figurative.
Lively spirit.
Exactly. But hopefully now you have a much deeper understanding
Of where it comes from
how it's used.
and all its nuances.
Right. And, it makes you think about the people in your own life.
Who you would describe as effervescent.
What is it about that bubbly quality that makes such a difference?
That's a great question to ponder and maybe even take some time today.
To notice the effervescence around you.
Whether it's in a drink.
Or in the people you meet.
Yeah, it's a quality that can really brighten our lives.
It can. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Cheers to effervescence.